Wang Ziping is one of China's most famous martial artists in semi-recent history. Born in the late 1800s, Wang, like so many other famous Chinese martial artists, has a classic origin story of being a weak little boy, thought not strong enough to learn kung fu, but he was incredibly determined and defied all odds, training on his own until he became massively strong. He was eventually accepted as a disciple by an accomplished master. Wang would go on to accept challenges from foreigners and Chinese alike. Sometimes these challenges were combat, but in Wang's case, he often solved conflicts in peaceful feats of strength, lifting massively heavy stones or weights that adversaries challenged him to lift. He was a master of multiple styles of kung fu and specialized in 4 different weapons, including the monk's shovel, which is called chanzhang in Chinese. It's an iconic weapon associated with Shaolin Kung Fu and also the weapon of Sha He Shang in the popular book and TV show Journey to the West. He served as the head of the Shaolin division of the National Guoshu Institute in 1928. In addition to actual martial arts and feats of strength, Wang Ziping was also known for his martial virtue, or wu de, something which is held as very important in the Chinese martial arts. He transmitted martial arts to his daughter, granddaughter, and other family members against all odds through the Cultural Revolution in China. At this time, he was banned from publicly teaching, and his daughter and son-in-law were sent to the countryside for re-education through labor. But Wang succeeded in passing on the traditions and left a lasting legacy. Family members later moved to the United States and have shared a lot of stories about his martial arts, strongman antics, and philosophy. This is the story of Wang Ziping, the 1,000-pound king. Wang Ziping was born in Cangzhou in Hebei province in China, which is just a little bit south of Beijing, in 1881. His family were Hui Muslims, or Huizu, which are an ethnic group of Chinese-speaking Muslims dispersed throughout China. When you see old photos of Wang throughout his life, he is often wearing the traditional headdress of the Hui people, this cap. Cangzhou was a hotbed of martial arts activity at the time. Both his father and grandfather were accomplished martial artists. But at 6 years old, the family decided that young Ziping was too weak to learn kung fu. But he confided in his mother. And Wang Ziping's granddaughter, Grace Wu Monat, recounted in an article she wrote that Wang Ziping's mother encouraged him using a Chinese 4-character saying, or chengyu. She said, 不要虎头蛇尾. You don't want to have a tiger's head and a snake's tail, meaning don't have a strong start but a weak finish. You have to follow through all the way to the end. Well, Wang Ziping did just that. As a boy, he went out into the forest and dug trenches to practice jumping over. These trenches got wider and wider until he could jump 10 feet forward and 8 feet back, according to his granddaughter. He also planted a tree outside his house and practiced jumping over it every year as it got taller and taller. This early practice focused mainly just on strength training, such as lifting stones and jumping. He didn't actually have a teacher to teach him any martial arts skills, although he probably knew some of the most common moves and stances. By the time he reached 16 years old, he was already very strong and had somewhat of a reputation. One day, Wang and his friends accepted a challenge to lift some stones on a bridge in a nearby town. Each stone was 215 pounds, according to his granddaughter, and they were arranged with a bamboo pole in the middle like weights, making the total around 430 pounds. To give context, in powerlifting, the world records for people in the likely weight range that Wang may have been in is around 540 to 600 pounds depending on body weight. So it's quite realistic that Wang would be able to lift around 400 pounds or so at 16 after years of rigorous strength training. The winner of this contest was supposed to be able to keep the stones and get 20 pounds of groceries as well. But when Wang succeeded in lifting the stones, the organizer drew his attention to something written on the bamboo pole. Anyone able to lift this will be awarded this weight and groceries, except for Wang Ziping. His reputation had preceded him. Another challenge happened when Wang had moved to Jinan. Wang challenged himself to stop a water wheel that was being turned by a fast-flowing river. He fought back against the force of the water and stopped the wheel. It was this incident that led to Wang's nickname, Qianjin Wang, or the 1,000-pound king. A group had gathered around to watch the spectacle, and out of that group came a man named Yang Hongxiu, who was a martial arts instructor and offered to accept Wang as a disciple. Wang, of course, accepted, and it was with Master Yang that he learned Cha Quan, which Yang was a master of, but then he also went on to learn Hua Quan, Ba Ji Quan, and Tai Chi. He mastered 4 main weapons: xiu jian, or sleeve swords, which were these small knives you could keep in your sleeve to protect yourself in emergencies, also a weapon of assassins. Check out this shot from Assassin's Creed. Then we have qinglong dao, the green dragon knife, which is basically your standard curved Chinese broadsword. There is actually footage of Wang practicing with what looks like this weapon. Then we have changqiang, or long spear. And then we have the chanzhang, or monk's shovel. This is the weapon of Lu Zhishen in the classic Chinese novel Outlaws of the Marsh, and also Sha He Shang in the other classic Chinese novel and TV show Journey to the West. You see Wang holding this weapon in this iconic photo of him. There is also an account of Wang saving the old ornate doors of a local mosque from Germans who were looking for rare items and wanting to buy them for half the price offered by the mosque. Wang guarded the mosque so they couldn't just come and force a sale. He eventually got the Germans to go away by accepting another strength challenge, lifting a 500-pound weight the Germans said no one they knew had been able to lift for 80 years. Another story that shows Wang's martial virtue is told by his granddaughter. There was a wrestling competition to be held in Zhangjiakou, a city near Beijing, and it was suggested that Wang take on a well-known wrestler called Hong Shifu, who had not been taken down in a match for 18 years. At this time, Wang was not really a wrestler, but he agreed anyway, with the condition that he had 3 months to prepare. He went back to Beijing, where he was living at the time, and started training, practicing kicks with 250-pound weights strapped to his legs and throwing around sandbags to train his grabbing strength. After 3 months, he was back for the contest, and he was faced with a 6-foot-tall Hong Shifu staring down at him. As soon as the first round started, he grabbed Hong with his hands and used his new massively strong legs to hit him with a low kick and knocked him over. But he was still holding on to Hong with his hand, and he didn't let him hit the ground. Remember, Hong hadn't been brought down in a competition for 18 years. This was a sign of respect to a fellow martial arts master. And even though Wang won in 3 rounds, he made this effort not to humiliate Hong. Hong told the media that Wang was the only true opponent he had faced in 18 years. On the day of the awards ceremony, neither of the 2 masters showed up, each thinking that their absence would show respect to the other. So Wang rose to the top of the martial arts field in China. There are theories that he was also involved in the Boxer Rebellion, although details about this are scarce. He did become the head of the Shaolin department at the National Guoshu Institute in 1928, and in 1935 served as a judge of both martial arts and wrestling at the 6th National Games. He taught Kung Fu to his daughter and son-in-law, and after the communist takeover of China in 1949, at first enjoyed support from the new government. He even went to Burma with Premier Zhou Enlai and demonstrated martial arts as part of the delegation. But then came the Cultural Revolution, where things took a dark turn in China. The Cultural Revolution was a movement in which schools were closed and young people were mobilized as what was called the Red Guards, or Hongweibing, to stamp out and destroy traditional culture in China. Anything religious, capitalist, or traditional was attacked, including traditional martial arts. Wang Ziping's granddaughter, Grace Wu, recounts in her article The Great Wang Ziping, A Granddaughter's Loving Reminiscence, what happened at this time. Wang Ziping's daughter and son-in-law were professors of Chinese medicine and martial arts at universities in Shanghai. In fact, Wang's daughter, Wang Jurong, was the first certified judge of wushu and archery in China. His son-in-law, Dr. Wu, was the coach of the Shanghai University wushu team. But because they were academics, they had to stop teaching and were sent to re-education through labor when the Cultural Revolution started. Thus, Grace Wu went to live with her grandfather, Wang Ziping, who was already around 90 years old at this time. Now, she probably needed a place to stay, but the idea was also that she could simply keep her grandfather company. But Grace describes the deep friendship the two formed, and Wang actually spent a lot of time secretly teaching Grace Kung Fu at home at night. Then in the daytime, since he was banned from teaching, he would actually have Grace, who was a little girl at the time, go to the park and teach Wang's students. Wang would sit on a bench nearby and either nod in approval or shake his head when Grace looked his way after teaching a certain technique. Just like people use VPNs to get around censorship in China now, this was the ingenious way that Wang got around his ban on teaching at the height of the Cultural Revolution. Wang Ziping died in 1973 at the age of 92, before the Cultural Revolution was over. His family members would then come to the United States and take part in spreading martial arts in the West, sometimes appearing all together at events.
They are the most famous kung fu family. The Chinese call them
无术世家.
That is Wang's son-in-law, Dr. Wu, and his wife, or Wang Ziping's daughter, Wang Zhurong, and their two daughters, Grace and Helen. Here is what Grace Wu said about her grandfather, having recently moved to the US as a young woman.
My grandfather is a very unique and special individual. But in my memory, my grandfather is a very kind, gentle individual.
And she is still teaching Kung Fu, running a martial arts school in Wichita, Kansas. Here is recent footage of her at a competition in 2024, continuing the legacy of Wang Ziping, the 1,000-pound king. Guys, in this video, we talked about the efforts of Wang Ziping and his family members to keep traditional Chinese martial arts alive, despite the destructive force of communism tearing across China in the Cultural Revolution. And I am all about restoring traditional Chinese culture, and that is why my favorite classical Chinese dance company is Shenyun Performing Arts. Classical Chinese dance shares the same root as traditional Chinese martial arts, and Shenyun specializes in classical dance and showing audiences China before communism, reviving those traditions that were lost during the Cultural Revolution and other communist movements. They are just about to start their 2026 world tour and may be coming to a city near you. Click the link below to watch the trailer, and if you do go on to book a ticket, use code LCN2026 for a waived booking fee on all US show dates. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.